The story of Jensen Huang is the story of how one man with a clear vision, relentless determination, and a willingness to take risks quietly built what is now one of the most influential companies on Earth. As the co-founder and CEO of NVIDIA, Huang has guided the company from a small Silicon Valley startup into a trillion-dollar empire at the center of artificial intelligence, gaming, and high-performance computing. His rise is not loud or flashy. He rarely seeks the limelight. Yet his impact is undeniable. The NVIDIA story is also the story of how innovation, when matched with persistence, can change entire industries. Jensen Huang was born in Taiwan in 1963. His childhood was not the story of immediate privilege. When he was still young, his family moved to Thailand and later to the United States. By the time he was 9, he was sent to live with relatives in Kentucky. Life in rural Kentucky was not glamorous. He shared a room with his brother in a modest home and had to quickly adjust to American culture. The young Huang spent much of his time focused on academics, and it became clear early on that he had both the discipline and intelligence to pursue a technical career. He later studied electrical engineering at Oregon State University and then earned his master's degree at Stanford University, placing him firmly on a path toward technology leadership. After college, Huang worked at companies like LSI Logic and Advanced Micro Devices. These early roles exposed him to the world of semiconductors and computer chips, industries that were highly competitive and full of technical challenges. But even then, he saw possibilities that others ignored. In the early 1990s, personal computers were becoming more powerful, and video games were beginning to demand more advanced graphics. The industry needed specialized chips that could handle the intense graphical processing required for immersive experiences. Huang saw the gap. He believed the future of computing would not only be powered by CPUs, but by a new type of chip, the GPU, or Graphics Processing Unit. In 1993, Jensen Huang co-founded NVIDIA, along with Chris Malachowski and Curtis Preem. At the time, very few people outside of the gaming world saw the potential in specialized graphics chips. Intel and other giants were dominating the CPU space, and it seemed impossible for a startup to compete. But Huang believed deeply that the GPU was the future. What made him different was not just his technical expertise, but his ability to build a vision around it. He convinced investors to fund NVIDIA and began building a team that shared his belief in graphics as the next frontier of computing. The early days of NVIDIA were not smooth. The company faced fierce competition, constant technological challenges, and the risk of running out of money. In fact, one of their first chips, the NV1, was considered a failure. It was too complex, too early, and did not sell well. For many startups, that kind of failure would have been the end. But Huang treated it as a lesson. He doubled down on research and development and pushed his team harder to create something that truly worked. In 1999, NVIDIA released the GeForce 256, which Huang described as the world's first GPU. It was a breakthrough. Suddenly, games looked and felt different. The chip could process millions of polygons per second, making visuals more realistic than ever before. NVIDIA was no longer just another chip company. It was a pioneer. What is fascinating is how Huang quietly guided NVIDIA from a gaming company into something much larger. While gamers loved the GPUs, Huang recognized another, even bigger opportunity. The architecture that made GPUs so good at rendering graphics also made them incredibly powerful for parallel computing. This meant they could handle massive amounts of data simultaneously, something CPUs were not designed to do. In the mid-2000s, he began pushing NVIDIA toward a new direction: general-purpose GPU computing. At the time, this was a radical idea. Most people thought GPUs were for gamers. But Huang saw their potential in fields like scientific research, finance, and later, artificial intelligence. This decision changed everything. In 2006, NVIDIA introduced CUDA, a software platform that allowed developers to program GPUs for general computing tasks. Suddenly, researchers could use GPUs for things like modeling weather, simulating molecules, and training early artificial intelligence systems. CUDA transformed NVIDIA into a company not just for gamers, but for scientists, engineers, and eventually, the entire tech industry. Huang's vision had expanded far beyond graphics. He positioned NVIDIA as the backbone of the future of computing. By the 2010s, as artificial intelligence began to take off, NVIDIA was perfectly positioned. Training AI models requires enormous computational power, and GPUs were uniquely suited for it. Companies like Google, Facebook, Microsoft, and later OpenAI all began using NVIDIA chips to train their models. Suddenly, the little graphics company from the 1990s was powering the most advanced AI systems in the world. Huang had quietly built a monopoly on the hardware that artificial intelligence depended on. While others were still catching up, NVIDIA was already years ahead. At the same time, Huang never abandoned NVIDIA's gaming roots. The company continued to release GeForce graphics cards that became the gold standard for PC gamers. NVIDIA also expanded into new areas like automotive technology, working on chips for self-driving cars, and into data centers where GPUs became essential for cloud computing. Each move was calculated, strategic, and driven by Huang's vision of a world where GPUs would be everywhere. By combining gaming, professional visualization, data centers, and automotive, Huang diversified NVIDIA's business and reduced risk, ensuring the company could thrive no matter where the market shifted. One of the most striking aspects of Jensen Huang's leadership is his style. Unlike some tech CEOs who chase media attention, Huang is known for being low-key and focused. He prefers to let his company's products speak for themselves. But when he does appear publicly, he is compelling. His trademark leather jacket has become iconic, and his keynote speeches at NVIDIA's annual GTC conference are followed like events in themselves. He explains complex ideas in simple terms, often showing how GPUs can change industries most people would never connect to graphics. Whether it is healthcare, robotics, or even space exploration, Huang has a way of making people see the bigger picture. By 2023, NVIDIA reached a milestone few could have imagined when Huang started the company in a small office in Santa Clara. It became a trillion-dollar company, joining the ranks of Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, and Google. The stock price soared, driven largely by demand for AI chips. NVIDIA's A100 and H100 GPUs became the gold standard for training large language models, including the ones behind the AI revolution. Companies lined up, sometimes waiting months, just to get access to NVIDIA hardware. Huang had built not just a successful company, but a critical piece of global infrastructure. What makes this achievement even more remarkable is how quietly it happened. While other tech leaders were constantly in headlines, Huang focused on execution. He built strong partnerships, invested heavily in research, and kept NVIDIA ahead technologically. His ability to pivot the company from gaming to AI, from consumer to enterprise, is what truly sets him apart. Most companies struggle to reinvent themselves even once. Under Huang, NVIDIA has done it multiple times. There are challenges, of course. The semiconductor industry is notoriously volatile, with supply chain disruptions, geopolitical tensions, and fierce competition. Companies like AMD, Intel, and even new players from China are trying to catch up to NVIDIA. But Huang has kept the company ahead by innovating faster than anyone else. He often says that NVIDIA is not just a chip company, but a computing platform, emphasizing the software and ecosystem that surrounds the hardware. This mindset ensures that NVIDIA is not easily replaced, even if competitors build similar chips. Another fascinating detail about Huang's journey is his personal stake in the company. He still owns a significant portion of NVIDIA stock, making him one of the wealthiest individuals in the world. Yet, unlike some billionaires, he rarely flaunts his wealth. His focus remains on the company, the technology, and the future. Employees describe him as demanding but inspiring, someone who pushes hard but also leads by example. He is known to work long hours and stay deeply involved in technical decisions, even at a scale where most CEOs delegate. Think about what this means for the future. Artificial intelligence is only just beginning to reshape the world, and NVIDIA is at the center of it. Every new AI breakthrough, from self-driving cars to generative models, relies on hardware that Huang's company provides. That makes NVIDIA not just another tech company, but one of the most important companies of the 21st century. And at the heart of it is Jensen Huang, the reclusive leader who saw possibilities long before anyone else did. It is almost poetic. A child who once lived in a Kentucky trailer park, sent far from home at a young age, grew up to build a trillion-dollar empire that powers the future of humanity. He is not the loudest CEO. He is not the most famous, but he may be one of the most influential. His story proves that vision matters, persistence pays off, and sometimes the quietest leaders make the loudest impact. As you reflect on this journey, consider what kind of leader Jensen Huang really is. Is he successful because of his technical genius, his ability to see trends before others, or his relentless focus on execution? Maybe it is all three. But one thing is certain. The empire he built quietly now powers much of the technology we use every day and will continue to shape the future. So here is a question for you. Do you think leaders like Jensen Huang, who prefer to stay focused on results rather than the spotlight, are better equipped to guide companies through massive technological shifts? Or is public presence and visibility just as important in inspiring confidence? Think about it, because Huang's story is not just about the past. It is about the future we are all heading toward.